Hello and welcome to the second season of Ruffells Ad Break. In this episode I have a chat with super connector Gill Dal Din. We talked about givers versus getters, how money follows value and how Christchurch could be doing better. Also, a massive thanks to our sponsor Pegasus Bay Wines, producer of some of New Zealand's very best wine.
Ruffells Ad Break.
Who is Gill? Who's Gill Dal Din? Who are you?
Well, short of giving you a formal elevator pitch, which I don't have, I have always loved connecting people, so I'm known as a bit of a connector around town, and when I get it really right, a super connector. But someone did say once that I know a lot of people and, know everyone in town, but I don't think that's quite true. However, I do love building my networks of high-value trusted networks, and I love business and I love innovation. So what I do these days is pull it all together and deliver value to scaling businesses.
It's like you're on Airbnb as a super host, you're the super connector.
Yeah.
I think you do know everyone worth knowing, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's sort of moving and shaking and trying to push some boundaries.
Yeah.
Why is that? Have you always been that way? You've always loved people?
Yeah, I have actually, but when I worked with the entrepreneur that I used to promote, I used to have an international events company promoting social enterprise, before it was a thing, do it businesses for good. Around 2003, and had a wonderful life traversing the world. We had a model for scaling entrepreneurship, and I was the supporter profile, which is always the one that brings the glue, always well connected and, does the right thing by the team. So yes. I've sort of taken those principles because it resonated with me, and always taken that to the next level, applying it to businesses and bringing the support and resources they need. And I was inspired by a book called The Speed of Trust, which is by Stephen R. Covey. Not his father was the Stephen Covey. So The Speed of Trust is, exactly that. When you've got a high-value trusted network, you pick up the phone and they answer, and vice versa.
It's shorthand, isn't it?
Yep.
It's knowing exactly who and what can do what parts.
Yep.
And you know that they are going to say, I'm not the right person for this. However, this person over here I've been working with is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's just sort of exponential speed curve, isn't it?
I really just want to make a difference and open up people's model of the world, and that can be for them personally or in business.
What do you mean make a difference? What does that actually mean? How do you qualify that? What's important for you, and what is it about? Is it that all businesses need to change, or is it that some you're more interested in certain aspects of particular change? Or
I'm always drawn towards innovation and stepping into the unknown, and taking ideas and actually challenging yourself. And my life's been a bit of a journey like that. I remember doing a course years and years ago about a personal development course, done many of them, about getting on the court, taking action, bit of a tennis analogy. So, when you're playing the shots and you're on the court, you're actually greater learnings as opposed to being in the grandstand, being an expert, which a lot of people tend to be.
It's infuriating.
And, it's a fear of stepping into the unknown and putting yourself on the line. So, as kind of a coach, a mentor, or someone who's working around businesses, I like to challenge people. In fact, I was talking to the wonderful Brianne West, who was in one of my business development programs, and she said to me, if it wasn't for me pushing her in that program to be a public speaker and speak about her business at that point, she apparently attributes me with that. Well, look at her now.
Yeah, that's right. She's done okay.
She's had lots of practice. She's great. She's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So was that? Let's start right at the beginning. Really, what was your childhood like? What were you like as a kid? Were you one of many? Did you have to fight for your position? Did you always sort of look at who was around the table and figure out how to best, get results so that you could get what you wanted? Was it always about putting other people first? How did it look?
So none of that.
Okay.
I was actually an only child.
Yep.
my father died when I was 3 months old.
Wow.
And so I was brought up by my mother and her spinster aunt. So I had quite an unusual childhood, but a very happy one. And so none of that fighting around the table. In fact, you know, I always wanted company. And so, you know, I'd get up early and wake the neighbours up and, you know, want to play just to have some company. And I had quite a different childhood in that sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to fight for any position. I was probably, you know, the star of the family, and everything I did was, sort
of celebrated.
Was celebrated.
Yeah, that's great. And did you find that your need for company or going and waking the neighbours, as you say, was that met in a pretty good kind of was it a good reception, or did you find yourself, you know, you obviously, I find you really personable, so has that always been the way? Has it just been, are you inquiring like that?
Yeah, I've always loved people, always wanted lots of friends, extreme extrovert, you know, love happy company, lots of fun, you know, just getting stuck in there.
Yeah, great. I suppose with the focus in that way, I'm making some assumptions, but with the focus that you're the only child, and from those circumstances where your father died, I mean that is not, as you say, normal. But it must have been kind of an incentive to, maybe not to push you, but to support everything that you sort of were looking to achieve?
It's very much a driver, and it took me a number of years to understand that. I guess he committed suicide when I was 3 months old. He was a vet and had a very great practice, but a very stressful one. And you know, it was very sad, and suicide wasn't ever understood at that point.
Spoken about?
And you know, so I think that's been a deep key driver about the theme of happiness in my life, so that, you know, always got that in the back of my mind.
Oh, good on you.
So, I think that's been a big thread through my life, and, you know, the flip side has always been more about happiness and, you know, what it takes to live an inspired life.
Great. Hey, what about working? Did you have to work as a teenager, as a young person? Did you sort of always work? I know that you've had a number of vocations or jobs or careers or whatever that you want to call it. You've got lots. But where did it start? Where did your work ethic kind of kick in?
Look, I've had a journey of 3 businesses, and one was developing a dental practice, and we created that into an award-winning practice, and won the Small Business of the Year awards. This is in the North Island back in the day, and
that's no small effort.
No, it was pretty great achievement. We were pretty chuffed at the time.
Did you have a plan for that right from the get-go? Is that the sort of level
it was just,
you were?
You know, I could see that we, you know, when you enter a business award, it actually makes you do a lot of things and makes you refine your business a lot more and get much clearer about it. I put the interestingly, I put the plan together and put the proposal in, and when we won, Frank, I got all the handshakes and congratulations.
Yeah, right.
And it was like one of those moments where I thought, you know, it's probably time that I did something for myself. And so I leapt into a franchise, and that was probably one of the darkest moments of my career, but the greatest learnings.
Okay, great. So you've gone from a really successful business that you've built up and seen no credit for, effectively.
Yes.
And then sort of almost gone the total opposite of that. And what year are we talking here?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, really? So you're still not getting credit in the early 2000s? that seems a bit dark ages already, doesn't it?
And it's not really about that, but so I leapt into a franchise. We had a lot of, we were doing a lot of property development and property investment and courses, and entrepreneurs like that need cash flow, and so this was going to be a business that was pretty good on cash flow and recurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And
what industry is this franchise in?
Renting out home appliances.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And interestingly, there's a whole lot of learnings on this one, but interesting.
Well, I like that you're laughing about that as you say that.
I usually see sunshine, but I was struggling to see and get out of a black hole, actually. It was quite a challenging time, and the greatest learning was, if it's to be, it's up to me. There's no one else that can dig you out of this mindset and see the light and work out what's right for you.
Yeah, great.
So I leapt into that business, and I kind of fought, that intuitive gut feeling that I actually pushed past that. And looking back, I think it was a sign to not step into that business.
Yeah, right.
If you look back and take
what
the
was
learnings.
it? So you were sort of thinking, oh, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. It's not stacking up. But
so I was doing it for the wrong reasons for me.
Yeah.
I was doing it to add a way to transition from dentistry to passive income for retirement and, all those sensible things.
Yep.
And I thought, I can do this.
Yep.
But it actually doesn't resonate with me as a business. We had, people that stole your gear, sold it for drugs, and, really dealing with a sector of society that a lot of lovely, lovely clients who were really grateful, and then there were those who abused it.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the time when very, very high interest rates, and the buying of appliances were very high, and you could see they were coming down.
Mm-hmm.
So the equation was stacked in the wrong way. So it's one of those learnings where I just decided. I had a business partner as well, and we just came to the conclusion that actually it was a good idea to wind things up for me, and so I did, and felt like I got my life back. And I decided in that moment that was actually more important to me than a financial loss.
Yep.
And
what did you learn when you walked away? I mean, apart from, I imagine, the massive sigh of relief, which is I'm sort of free from this burden.
Yeah.
What did you learn? Did you learn don't go into business with another person, do better homework, listen to your gut?
I think it's more listen to your gut in my case. Yes, I could say all of those things, but actually, in fact, I use this. I picked up. I used to promote an international entrepreneur, and we used to run events, and always lots of wonderful phrases like that I picked up from him. And one was green light, red light. And that was definitely a red light. All signs and signals were saying, don't do it, don't do it. If I really listened, and I can look back and see that, and I fought and thought, no, I can do this, head stuff, just keep going. And, I could, and I did. But I was stressed, just so many things. I had teenage kids, I had another business I was running. It was just stretched to capacity, and I thought, my life's more important.
Don't want to do it anymore.
I don't want to do this. And I like to be engaged with people and happy, and I was stressed and I was abrupt, and I wasn't showing up in the way that I like to be. So, at some point you just got to take stock and go, what's most important here? Yeah. And so I did that.
So you've been involved in a huge number of your own enterprises, but also working for and with a great number of people doing really interesting things. Always, Do you want to talk about some of those?
Yeah,
some of the challenges, some of the wins.
Yes, well, particularly after the earthquakes. So I was working in the Economic Development Agency. And, we saw an opportunity to help businesses and get them back on track. So originally there was a program that I took over. It had been created, and it was called the Capital Cluster. And, it was businesses feeling like they needed capital. But actually when we looked under the hood, actually there wasn't really the need for capital. It was more tidying up the back end of the business. So I reinvented that program into the Amplifier program, and we grew it to another level. It was basically a 12-month program for businesses that we were working with in the agency that showed potential and just needed some help. So part of the program was to have a cluster advisory group, and they were experts in their field in Christchurch and gave their time pro bono. It was extraordinary. And those businesses over 12 months would just be focused on the key issues that would shift the dial. So it was very high level, very fast moving, and produced some really good results. And the value that got created from a wonderful story too, which we never really told. But if I at one point looked at the value around the sounding board table, was probably about $25,000 worth of pro bono value that those businesses got for that particular year. Now, they wouldn't have gone out and got such a diverse, support.
Yes.
So it was pretty good for results for that. And then the next program I ran was the high growth program, and I did that for about...
I'm going to stop you there because I want to go back to the cluster. I want to dig a little bit deeper before we move on. When I think of cluster, I think of another word to follow it, which in fact this wasn't, by the sound of it. This is the opposite. How do you start to find the right kinds of people to build those teams to, when you're talking about having $25,000 over the course of a year to sit down pro bono and help develop and help work within them? How do you find those people? How do you have a network to be able to do that? Because that's a really hard sell to someone. There has to be something in it, and either they want to learn something or they want to sit around with other people who are like-minded because it's lonely or whatever it is, but there has to be something there.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess... we actually were working with various consultants in town, so we had a big network anyway. And there are just some people who stand out, as happy to give their time. And, there's givers and there's getters. Most people are looking for what they can get out of things. These people were happy to give their time and, make a difference to some of our businesses. So we were looking for that kind of approach and way of being.
And do you think that then is that sort of I suppose the attitude of giving back, not necessarily philanthropy, but is it a multiplier? Does that then come out at a larger scale with those businesses? Or?
When I used to engage these people, so we had about 30 over the time that we could draw on to, pick 2 or 3 depending on the issues. We would match their skills with the business issues. And, it was quite a commitment. So the engagement process was, here's the commitment, here's what we're up to. We're wanting to, help these businesses, bring resources to them to further the progress. And, like anything, you always work with people you like and trust. And so over time, the potential really was for a new client to be gained from the relationship. It didn't always happen.
Yep.
And the other thing I'd say is that the cluster people around the table were often competitors, but they worked together for the betterment of the business. So, we needed people with that attitude.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? For such a small town, we've got quite a competitive spirit, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah, and more so than I'd say some of the bigger or more... So, for example, you go to Wellington and people work together,
So this really engendered a spirit of giving back and helping. And when you frame it as pro bono, it suggests that. And so, we were looking for people who were committed to that cause and working with us on that. And I know that they sit out there today and they're still willing to, if I said, right, we're going to start that program again, they would be there.
They would engage. Great.
Yeah.
And so that was number 1. What was number 2?
So I used to run the high growth program, and that had a long history with a wonderful gentleman I worked with, John Hamilton, and he had started the high-tech program and had some extraordinary results. So again, the program was already there, but I took it over and morphed it into something, because everything changes over time. You need to constantly be relevant. So my journey was in that program, running, curating it, directing it, pulling it together for 4 or 5 years, and every year we would take 10 businesses on the program. And the first iteration I ran was a 3-month program, kind of like an education program. But over time, I realised that those businesses came in, I think they came in a bit more educated and a bit more knowing. And so I changed that. I worked with a business coach and changed the program to more of a coaching model. And the results, it was just prior to COVID, and the results were incredible, I have to say. So I would absolutely love to bring that back. And
in what way were they incredible?
So much of it is accountability. The regular check-ins, but the program we designed was the leader, the founder, and 2 or 3 of his or her leadership team, so that when you set the strategy, everyone sets the strategy, and execution's key. So we need to have the same. Everyone's clear on the execution that needs to go through the business. And then there's the accountability. And I think that's the key thing for businesses on the journey. They need to have accountability, someone to check in with, and very few have that. Very few engage a coach, and very few had this opportunity. And it really delighted me, to be really honest. Just something I'm very proud of, So a lot of the businesses reorganised, they might have restructured a few just to get the right people on the bus, in the right seat, going in the right direction.
At the right time.
At the right time.
And why do you think people are so reserved about business coaches?
Probably the expense.
Yeah.
And,
not sure about what they're going to get out the other end if the ROI stacks up.
I actually think there's the challenge to the coach, I need to make sure that I at least return the investment I've made. Yeah, great. So...
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I think sometimes... I'm thinking now as a business owner.
Yes.
I put my business owner hat on, and I think, well, business coaches, the idea of it sounds great, but because we're so niche, I worry that I'll spend too much time interpreting what it is that we do and try to do, versus the actual doing of the work. But maybe I've got the wrong impression.
The level of coach I was working with, and we were dealing with 3 to 10 million level turnover businesses, and scaling to create scale businesses, to create jobs, and the coach was typically working with 60 million level businesses. So bring that mindset as your coach to 3 to 10 million, and you're going in a formula that is relevant to that level. Certainly brings up the thinking of everybody, and the accountability and the delivery, and it certainly showed, and so it worked. I just would have liked to have carried on.
Yes, and that's just timing, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things which we think about quite a bit, is how much of it's timing, how much of it is expertise, and how much of it's luck. And I think there's a little bit of all of that, isn't there, in business?
Yes, I guess, luck, what do they say, where opportunity meets preparedness.
Oh, really? Yeah. Or the harder I work, the luckier I become.
That's right. Yes, or not what you know, who you know.
Yeah. I always think that intuition or gut feeling or what have you is as much about experience as it is about reading people or what have you. And you kind of have to have enough... not even hardship, but you have to learn things along the way, and you learn things generally from things not going your way and you altering. And if you're smart enough and you're quick enough and you have good people around you, it doesn't hurt too much. But for those people who are potentially haven't had that level of experience and they're just making academic decisions.
Yeah.
It'd be really easy for them to get into the same kind of problems, wouldn't it? How do they bypass that? Or do they just have to go through that?
Well, there's... I view things these days head or heart, and...
One or the other?
Ego. Well, if you can combine it, maybe, but so much of business is head, isn't it? I mean, it's just brute force pushing through.
Yep.
And I'm more inclined to want the entrepreneurial flow, which is, the green light.
Yeah.
So, I sort of, I think there's almost an intuitive way of, traversing that journey intuitively, where you're starting to make decisions that actually, there's more flow.
Yep.
And, it's the spirit of entrepreneurship.
I suppose it's like, sports people talk about being in the zone. When you're
it's exactly that.
It's about hitting your stride and really
and surfing the wave and just really keeping the momentum going.
Yeah, fantastic. So, what is it about the way that you work, or what is it that you want out of the way that you work? I mean, I feel like we've almost kind of just covered that, but you seem to. You seem to not stop. You go from, do you know? You go from one thing to the next thing, and then it's. I don't know if you're looking for a challenge because you're bored, or if you are genuinely excited because you can see the opportunity, and you've had some good successes. Yeah. So, what is that?
I get bored. When I read that book about growth mindset, it made sense to me because I've definitely got a growth mindset. I'm definitely, attracted to people who have. It's all about possibilities, about stepping into the unknown. And that's why, in the last probably 8 years, I've had the most exciting career, really in the field of innovation. The city rebuild here in Christchurch, working with businesses in that field. I've been able to spot 2 game-changer industry changes. The aerospace, I was a champion of the aerospace industry and saw the potential of that very early on. And, so much so that people were saying, just shut up about it. And I'm going, but I can't, I'm just seeing all this potential, and globally it's worth...
And it's being realised.
Billions. And it's now realised 5 years later, which is kind of like, told you so. Anyway, and green hydrogen is the second one. So, I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. Are you getting better at it, or are you just more comfortable and confident? Or
yeah, probably, and more tuned in.
Yeah.
And maybe able to pick the winners.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that a little bit the other day, and you seem to be very attuned to figuring out who's bullshit and who's not. Maybe is that what you think it is? And again, is that the?
So, yeah, I mean, look, I've studied the human mind for years, and it fascinates me, and I've always tried to take myself on as well. And when I ran a lot of business growth courses, I mean, I've worked with quite a number of entrepreneurs now, and I'm always drawn to the ones who you can just tell they're leaning in, their eyes wide, they're passionate about their business, the problems they're challenging, and they're worthy of backing, and they're onto something. And it's not hard to get behind those people.
That's quite rare though, Gill. That's quite rare. I mean, the amount of tables that I'll sit around and it's not even that you're pitching an idea. It's just, because I always think you've got to listen and learn first and see whether or not that's a good fit. Because if it's going to be a struggle, if we're going to butt heads the whole time, then let's not do it because it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of companies who want what they want and they don't want to maybe they're very, and look, as a founder of a business, it's really hard. You've got to struggle. You know this as much as anyone, and you have to dig in, and you have to have some self-belief, and sometimes you've got to be stubborn and pig-headed because that's what's required, and other times you've got to be soft and embrace different ideas, but it's sometimes difficult to know when. And I suspect that's probably really what you've been doing, is saying, hey, you guys are at a point where you need some help. I'm the help, because I can, get through the BS.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it? What? Because I don't know that that's common. What you're talking about doing, I don't know how common that really is.
Okay. These days, I go work with the willing. It's one of the things. I'm not here to convince, to change anybody. They either get, and again, it fits with this idea of green light entrepreneurial flow. When you've got people ready and they're leaning in and they're willing, and it's just so much easier to work with people because they're inspired, they want something, and collectively we can all make a much bigger difference than doing it individually on our own. And we know that innovation comes from diversity. So I've always applied that principle in terms of, the diverse minds around the table and respect everyone's. And you've got people leaning in, wanting the next level of impact, because it's only going to happen out of collaboration. It's going to happen faster. So we've got this thing about speed and time there. And willingness.
And willingness.
And willingness, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's really interesting. I think one of the things across this podcast is that the people who we're having on, the guests that we're having on, the commonality is probably that they all are wanting to do, maybe not with purpose. Purpose, I think, is a word which has been overused sort of over the last 5 years, hasn't it? But they're driven by something other than the bottom line. Yeah, it's important to get paid, but there's a bigger thing. What is it that you want to see, either for yourself or for the city or for the country? What would you like to see?
I'd actually like us to speed up and actually look. Some of the things I think we've done is we've made decisions a little bit within a limited paradigm.
Okay, this is good. I like this already.
We really want that, but actually we've only got this amount of money. And the thing I learnt from the entrepreneur I used to work with years ago is that when you've got a network, money follows value. So why are we not standing more for what we want? And we may not know where the money is at this stage, but actually attract it in a new way. That, there are investors out there are people with money. It's like they will step in when the combination's right. And sometimes I think we're not ambitious enough and we just work within the limited paradigm. I've seen so many examples of wonderful things that would have been great for the city. Incredible technology, incredible things. I used to work in the Economic Development Agency and I was very privileged to see a lot of things. People bring ideas to you. And, I think, gosh, it's a shame some of these things didn't get actioned and supported.
And arguably the marketing of our city is stuck within that same paradigm. And, if I see another, excuse the language, fucking tram or punt down a river, I get it. I get it. It's an easy sell, low-hanging fruit. But at some stage, we've got to be more than low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
There actually has to be value beyond the obvious.
Yeah.
And that's the bit which drives me bloody bonkers.
Yeah, it's like who are we as the soul of a city?
Absolutely.
And what's the attraction factor that we want to be known for? Because, we want to grow this city. We want to create new jobs, high-value jobs and things like that. So how are we going to position ourselves?
Well, I always thought that we should tell the world we don't want them to know about us. We're too busy getting on with it, so don't come here. 'Cause that's the fastest way to get people to put their eyes on, right? You know, what is going on there?
I remember someone straight after the earthquake said some sort of line like, "Come to Christchurch, take a punt." Always made me laugh.
I do have a question here, but I don't know if that's relevant for you or not, or if we can sort of twist it somehow so that there's some sort of response. I've been asking, what is the first piece of work that you put into the world? You know, do you have an answer for that? What is the first thing that you did that you felt really good about that you put into the world?
Oh gosh.
Or was it championing a business, or was it identifying?
Oh, the thing I'm most proud of actually is spotting the potential of the aerospace industry for Christchurch. And I remember working with Fabrum, and they're now quite well known, Chris Boyle and the team, for their hydrogen.
Yeah.
And I remember we used to have a lot of coffee catch-ups, and I'd be eyes wide saying, "You're doing what?" And he was doing work with the European Space Agency, and they were building an environment chamber on Earth to be able to test robots that would work in minus 240 degrees on Mars. And I'm going, what?
In Hornby.
Yeah, this is right. I go, really? And and we're doing work with NASA and all of that. I'm thinking, gosh, this is incredible. Here in Christchurch, we've got this activity worldwide being developed for the space on Mars. And I'm thinking, wow. The next minute I met Eric and Emmeline Pack-Dahlstrom, and they are Edmund Hillary space entrepreneurs. So I reached out to them and I said, would you be interested in working, and actually going over, absolutely, meeting Chris and the team. So when they came to Christchurch, I set up a week visit I reached out to my colleagues, said, what things have we got going on in the city that you know of as space related? Well, it was incredible what I came up with to showcase Eric and Emmeline around the city. I went to Canterbury University, saw this rocket guidance research being done. It was all top secret at the time. There was stuff in schools that Miranda was doing, Miranda Satterthwaite. She's incredibly doing some incredible stuff with, getting the next gen of young ones together. So, you start to see all these things, and then some of the manufacturing companies were doing work for Rocket Lab, and it was all top secret. So you piece all this together and, take these people on the city tour, and they're 30 years in the international space industry, and you think, goodness me, we have got one of everything, that the ecosystem needs. And then down the road, of course, we caught up with Mark Rocket, who's had a passion about Christchurch being a spaceport and getting into space, and had been one of the first, to buy a ticket on space,
On the SpaceX one?
Yes.
Or on,
No,
on
the other one.
Branson's.
Your Branson's.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of these things were going on, and one thing led to another, and then Mark and I worked to start the beginning of the aerospace meetup, which became this community of, you've had the university students, there's rocketry clubs going on in the city, and industry, government agencies, and so on. So again, it's an example of pulling together the community. Before, we didn't go out and ask for money. We pulled the community, so money now followed the value of what was created. Fast forward that today, and what Mark and the team at Aerospace New Zealand have done is incredible. So with a lot of support now, and the beginning of, all this entrepreneurship in the city. So I guess, I've always been inspired by a saying, be the source, the possibilities are endless. And for me, that's a great example of, starting something, believing in something way before it was actually a thing. And like I said to you, I was told to keep quiet about it. They'll think you're mad. They'll think you're mad if we think we're going to Mars. But actually, I had evidence.
Yeah.
And it's been a fascinating experience to be part of that privilege.
Yeah, fantastic. And is that a heart or a head?
Heart.
Yeah.
And head, but definitely following an intuitive hunch. And, a lot of evidence was, out there about the trillion-dollar industry it is.
Yes, yeah. Gill, that's fantastic. What about where you're at now? Because my goodness, what a maverick. You know, you come in
called
here.
Many things, not that.
But actually, in a way, you are. I mean, you reinvent yourself. I mean,
Yes,
that is
yes.
not a traditional pathway. You're not like climbing a ladder.
No.
It's instead of being a very strict and firm sort of. I won't say the word because I respect you too much. But you are pivoting, shall we say,
Yes,
to use
yes.
an overused word. Where are you at now? Tell us about what you're doing.
So I decided 2024 is the year of Gill, and I have 3 gorgeous kids internationally, one in Finland, one in London, and a daughter in Sydney, 2 sons and a daughter, and a Euro passport and a laptop. And so I've rented my house out, and I am able to work remotely and looking for opportunities to...
Gill, you don't know what you're doing. This is madness. This is madness. I love it.
Some people have said that. I've started with the base foundation, renting my house out, and then the rest is evolving, and there's nothing like stepping into the unknown and causing the next bit. And in fact, I do always say it's the art of causing the next bit and trusting the next thing will show up. And someone said to me, only 1% of the people would do this. I said, they're probably mad enough to do.
There's something quite nice about that, though, isn't there? That's trusting experience and going, well, actually, now's the time if I'm going to go and have some fun and figure out the next bit, whatever that may be. And you're open to it being, more or less anything, or are you sort of trying to take bits and pieces of the last, couple of decades and mash it together, or what are you trying to do?
Yes, a bit of that. Coaching. I love supporting businesses and business owners to get to the next level. And of course, the more you change your operating environment or where you live and where you go, I used to say I get the greatest insights 37,000 feet up in the air in an aeroplane. But, the more you change the context of your life, the more you see things differently. And I don't think we do that enough and bring that different lens. So, always I'll be looking for opportunities either for myself or businesses back home. I'm just really going on an adventure. Bit of a magic carpet ride.
Yeah, great. We just, in 2023, took the family to Japan. It's the first time they've been to Japan. Oh. And we kind of felt like we were cheating because these days Google Translate's so good. GPS is there with Google Maps. I mean, we could get around in a way that I've been to Japan a few times, but I could never get around like that.
No.
So I felt like I was cheating. But the probably the biggest thing for me was every single place we went to, there was an influencer with a phone, or there was somebody doing a live stream. The world has changed in a way that we don't see here, and I think sometimes we're so busy hustling because the size of or the scalability of our businesses is so limited that we forget that there's a much bigger picture outside. So going out and exploring and saying, right, we'll go there and we'll see that. It's great for me, but really it was for the kids, But I could see it through their eyes. And that in itself was, a great reminder for me that look outside. Change your context and, probably be a bit more deliberate with some of your actions.
And also, children are our teachers. I think Buckminster Fuller said that years ago. And, I look at my daughter, she's doing exactly that. She's started in TikTok and got a broadcasting degree and now has a podcast. And it's just incredible watching a whole other creative opportunity emerge and turn into business. And
That's why
So-
you're here, isn't it, Jill? It's because your daughter has a podcast and you didn't want to miss out. Except she's got how many tens
the
of or hundreds
fastest
of
growing
thousands.
in Australia, and
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
doesn't always, the content's not always of approval with her mother. She goes, "Thanks for sharing, Mum. You're not my target market."
Well, she's got that right. She's got that right. Well, hopefully you'll be for our target market, and I thank you very, very much for coming along.
Thanks,
and
Tim.
for your time. Thanks for listening, Pod Peeps. For more info on how we work or what we can bring to your business or project, get in touch at ruffles.co.nz. See you on the next one.